Good afternoon, everyone, or potentially good morning, depending on where in the world you might be joining us from. Really pleased to have you with us today and joining us for this afternoon's Vevox What's New, What's Next session. So essentially, for those of you that haven't attended one of these sessions before, really what this is going to focus on is a look back to the last sort of 3 to 6 months with what our development team have been working on in terms of the enhancements and additional features that have been added to the Vevox platform over the last couple of quarters. But then we'll also have a look at what is kind of coming in terms of this year's development as well, and what's on the roadmap for our enhancements for this year and also bleeding over into next year as well. So without further ado, I'll just quickly introduce myself and Brogan. So we both work in the customer success team here at Vevox, and our day-to-day role is actually sort of managing and working with lots of institutional-based customers. We're also kind of heavily involved in sort of training and kind of day-to-day working with our customers in their kind of use cases and support of Vevox. But like I say, we're here today to talk to you about the kind of recent enhancements and features that have been brought to the platform, as well as some of the additional functionality that we're working on for this year. So as mentioned, in terms of the agenda for today, so initially we're going to take a quick look and a bit of a recap to the September 2024 release. So we're going to go back and just quickly kind of walk through the various functionality that came about into the platform as part of that release. It was actually quite a big update. We brought quite a lot of new sort of features to the platform. Similarly with the December release, which is our last and most up-to-date release, which came out just before the Christmas period. I think it was in like the sort of first week of December. So again, we'll have a look at the updates and the functionality that came as part of that release, primarily because obviously, you know, we know that as users of Vevox yourselves, you don't necessarily kind of always have the time to kind of keep in the loop and sort of keep up to date on, you know, the latest functionality. We try and do our best to facilitate and communicate that through our various, you know, channels. But equally, we know you're all hard at work and you don't always get the time and luxury to sort of, you know, look at those. So the idea of today's session is to really just try and educate you as much as possible and kind of let you know really what's been going on. So then, as mentioned, we'll take some time towards the end looking at the sort of roadmap ahead and what we're kind of working on into the future. And then we'll have a few notices and just a couple of things to mention towards the end as well, just a few kind of ad hoc areas and other things that we think will be interesting for you to know. As mentioned, in addition to that, we will also have the Q&A segment towards the end of the session. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Brogan, and we're going to just run through a couple of initial icebreaker questions to get a few things sort of flowing and ideas kind of happening. So Brogan, over to you.
Thank you very much. So the first poll that we'll be running at the start of the session, just to get everyone into it. So what is your New Year's resolution for 2025? And there's lots of us joined to the session as well, so it should make a nice big word cloud. Cool, I'm going to close that one now. Thank you for everyone who answered.
I like whoever put learn more about Vevox as well. That's always good to see.
There you go, you're doing it. Fab. And then if we go on to the next one, so this is one of our rating polls. So just out of interest, how many Vevox webinars have you joined previously? So it could be a webinar like this could be your first one. It could be to one of our kind of education webinars or anything that is some sort of Vevox webinar. It'd be interesting to know how many you've joined before. And if it's your first one, as Fraser said, welcome. Thanks for coming. Cool, I'm going to close that poll. Thank you for answering. Hopefully, if you run this poll next time, the numbers will all shoot up. It'll be at least a second. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Brogan. And yeah, thanks everyone for getting involved with those couple of initial questions. They're great to see so many of you on the session here today and also joining in on the Vevox session as well. And if you haven't already joined, then it's not too late to do so. So yeah, definitely please do get involved. So yeah, as I said, we're going to look quickly back to the month of September and what kind of happened through that release period. So just very quickly, going to actually kind of go through them individually one by one and look at some of the functionality that was added to the platform over that period. So one of the major initial features that we brought into the September 2024 release was the ability for Q&A participant labeling. So for the more sort of veteran users amongst you here, you'll know that the labels facility has been in Vevox for quite some time now, and that's regarding the Q&A board. So Q&A is kind of one of the big sort of major components inside the platform. It allows for participation through the medium of sort of anonymized messaging and questions inside of an environment that, like I said, can be completely anonymized. And the labels are essentially a way of allowing you to categorize different questions and sort of comments and things that have come into the Q&A. So you could have predefined labels that you set up to represent sort of different maybe topics or subjects, or even if you're running maybe a panel session, they could cover relevant speakers. So you could position questions to the appropriate speaker in that particular example. So the way that the labels work traditionally, you can then filter on the present view inside of Vevox on your Q&A board, so that you can then kind of filter to show off those relevant questions in that segment. But what we've now added within the participant app, as you can see on the GIF there on the right, actually participants can now in their own right send through questions into those labels that you, the host, have created. So it kind of makes managing the Q&A even easier, because if your participants under the right instructions are sending their questions into those sort of pre-designated buckets, if you will, it then makes your life, the host job, even easier to then kind of go through and look at those questions underneath those filters. So that was one of the first updates that was added to the platform. The second one was Q&A downvotes. So again, for those of you that will know, the ability to like and upvote questions in the Q&A has existed in Vevox for quite some time now. Again, you can see a bit of an example of that on the screen. But we've now also added the ability to actually downvote potential questions as well. Now, this is something that, it's not necessarily going to be used by everybody, but essentially what it allows for is the kind of ranking of questions depending on how they've been voted, either, positively or negatively. So first of all, I'll kind of mention that no question can ever go below 0 votes. So you can see the kind of illustration on screen there. So no one could ever feel, really sort of majorly disheartened if their question or comment has sort of, minus 10 votes, for example, because we haven't enabled the functionality like that. It's more so that if you have, a multitude of questions or comments, people can kind of like and upvote and downvote those questions accordingly. So it will kind of, give you a bit of a spread of the questions that are in there, and a different way and more flexibility to actually kind of sort of filter the results. So like I said, it's not going to be necessarily used by everyone, but it also will have a use case in those specific areas that I just mentioned. And also it can be turned off. If you don't wish to use it, it can be disabled by default in your dashboard, and then you just you won't see it. But it is something that can have its place in certain areas. So next up, we also have the alternate result display. So traditionally with for example, the multiple choice question in Vevox through the present view, again, as you can see on screen there, it would usually present the results in sort of a bar chart format. So you would have your question and then your multiple choice response options beneath that. But what we've now actually done is added the ability to change how the results display on your present view. So instead of the kind of traditional bar chart, as I mentioned, you can now actually dynamically flip the results to display in a pie chart instead. So again, you can see that on the GIF that's currently running in the bottom right. So there's a small set of buttons that appear down the right on your present view, and you can press those, and then it will dynamically change the image into a pie chart, as you can see there, which is dynamic. You can click on it and it will kind of show the percentage and an area in more detail. And it's really just a nice way to kind of show the results in an alternative way. And like I said, it's dynamic, so you can literally change those on the fly. You don't even need to set the question up that way in advance, although you can do, and you can just choose to show the data in a slightly different kind of method. So next thing to mention is actually technically a new question type that we've added, although it is sort of a variation of an already existing question, and that's the number cloud. So we've already kind of looked at the word cloud a little bit here today, actually, at the start of the session, and the word cloud has existed in Vevox for, a really long period of time now, good, number of years. It's probably one of the most popular used questions. It's something we always get asked about. It generates a lot of interest, a lot of buzz in a room, particularly when it's being used as an icebreaker, for example, as we've done here today. But we've now added sort of a variation of that question so that you can now use it in a numerical setting instead. So instead of it being, word-based, it can now be used to display, numbers and numerical characters instead. So it actually sits under the numeric poll in Vevox. So some people get a bit confused by this because they sort of go in looking for the number cloud and kind of get a bit confused when it's not there under their drop down. but it's actually under the numeric poll question. And if you go into there, you'll then see you have the option to convert that into the number cloud. So again, it's a really nice way to kind of show a numerical based question in a different way. And if you set it up with a correct answer, when you reveal that at the relevant point in your present view, it will then dim out all of the incorrect answers and then show the actual correct answer. So yeah, it's quite a nice addition there in terms of an additional question type. And then kind of continuing with the theme of questions here. So we've also made a bit of a change, actually quite a big one, to be fair, to the text walls. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Brogan, but I've had quite a lot of feedback personally about the changes that we've made to the text open text questions. So traditionally, the open text poll in Vevox used to essentially display the results really in just a list, I think would be fair to say. So you would have all of your listed responses from all of your participants, and the beauty, of course, with an open text poll is it allows up to 2,000 characters in a response. So it really allows your audience to be a lot more kind of expressive and emotive within their responses. Kind of, more sort of discussional based things can be used and captured through an open text poll. But we've now slightly changed how the results display is. Instead of that kind of list that I mentioned, it will now display in this sort of dynamic wall, so you can see all of the responses really nicely on there. And then you can click the individual response and then actually reveal the entire content of that particular message. So I think from like an accessibility point of view, we've had, quite a lot of positive feedback around it. I think it's a lot easier to sort of read, and it's a bit more kind of engaging, I think, than just a big sort of, list of text. So I think on the whole, it's been well appreciated. And I'm sure a lot of you probably would have just noticed that kind of organically through your use of the platform. And then just a couple of other things to mention. So we've now also added, and actually you would have seen this right at the start of the session, but we've added real-time support for word clouds now in PowerPoint. So if you don't know, Vevox does also have a fully native PowerPoint add-in that you can use to run your questions directly through a PowerPoint deck, as well as the present view, which is obviously what we've been using here today. And now you also have the ability to run these live word clouds directly inside PowerPoint. So that previously wasn't possible. It's quite a technical challenge to get that to kind of work in PowerPoint as it does with the sort of native web-based version of Vevox. So yeah, really delighted to be able to have that functionality in the platform now as well. And you can essentially see the results that you're seeing on screen and what you guys have seen at the start of the session.
Definitely very requested, that one, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and typically I think what tends to happen with our development cycle is typically things kind of take place in the main sort of web-based dashboard first, and then naturally over time those elements most of the time are then able to make their way into PowerPoint. So there's usually somewhat of a slight lag behind, but yeah, that's kind of just due to the nature of the development involved essentially. But yeah, also I'm not going to spend too much time on these kind of next couple of slides, but just want to mention here that we've also made a few sort of adjustments to the Microsoft Teams add-in as well. So really just some UI tweaks, so to improve the kind of overall user experience, just to kind of make things appear a bit nicer and sort of more accessible on screen. But we've also now added the ability to set labels, for the labels that we talked about earlier, and also favoriting directly from within Teams as well. So again, really trying to make sure that there's a lot of sort of parity between the different areas of the platform, whether it's kind of PowerPoint, the Teams integration, the web-based dashboard, trying to make sure that they all kind of work in sort of unison, regardless of where you're sort of accessing things from. So there's been a few kind of adjustments made in that regard. And then just finally, before I hand over to Brogan to look at the kind of latest update that took place in December, we also made a few adjustments to our LaTeX library as well. Now, this definitely isn't going to be something that all of you will be users of. Specifically, Brogan and I are quite au fait with this because we actually work in the education team at Vevox, and typically this might be used, for example, by sort of maths and physics-based lecturers that might have a need to actually display kind of formulaic-based equations and that kind of thing. And you can build those types of contents and questions within Vevox. But essentially, what this update entails is we've added more kind of support for the different libraries that LaTeX supports. So we've now added a new MChem extension to add more kind of, like I said, more support for different equations, different symbols that can be created through the functionality. And we've also added additional support for how it then displays the data and displays the questions inside of PowerPoint when building those questions. So yeah, pretty solid release on the whole. I think, our development team have definitely been pretty hard at work, and I'm actually going to hand over to Brogan now, who's going to talk you guys through some of the things that happened in our last update in December.
Thanks, Fraser. So what is new in the December 2024 release? So the first thing that we're going to have a look at is the before and after poll comparison. So you can see this on the GIF that we've got on the screen kind of in action as well. So this is really good for displaying shifts in opinion or understanding in either maybe your lecture or a meeting or something like that. So essentially you can run the same question twice and then instantly compare the kind of first time the question was asked and the second time. So you could do that in maybe a kind of knowledge check or ask people the same question at the beginning of a meeting and then again at the end to see how people's opinions may have differed or may have stayed completely the same. But yeah, it's nice that you can do that live and in the moment as well. There you go. And the next one, which we were super excited about even, easy for me to say, is demographic segmentation. So with this one, it can help you understand your audience in that little bit more detail and identify trends with demographic segmentation. So using the multiple choice poll type, so the example that we've used here is what age range do you fall into? So you could ask that at the start of your session. And then when you run other multiple choice polls, following on from that, you can then display the poll results by those demographics that you asked in the initial poll. So a bit of a country themed one, I guess, on the GIF here. But yeah, you can see actually how those results, you can kind of compare and use that demographic segmentation. I'll let you quickly see that on the GIF before I move on.
Yeah, I think it's a really good one for really just getting kind of extra insight and data out of your actual questions. So, you know, it really kind of allows you to, you know, split the results by an even kind of wider set of data. So yeah, as you can imagine, it took quite a lot of work to develop this into the platform. So, and I think it will have, you know, really interesting and kind of, yeah, exciting use cases that we're really looking forward to sort of hearing about.
Definitely. So the next one is rich text options for question formatting. So you can add greater impact and clarity with your text using this new feature. So in the same way that you would use in other software platforms, you can make your text bold, italic, underline it, bullet point, and new lines. And this is also compatible with the LaTeX functionality if this is something that you use. So yeah, customize a little bit more. And the next thing to have a look at is attendance tracking. So you may already be aware that when you download your data report to the Excel spreadsheet report, that didn't make sense, but you know what I mean. When you download the Excel spreadsheet of the data report, that's what I was trying to say, you can see if you run it identified, first name and last name, as you can see on the screen, when people joined and left, or if it's anonymous, it will just say anonymous, but you can still see when people joined and left the session. So this data is now a little bit more accessible and easier to find. So when you're in your data tab, where you see your poll results and all that jazz there, at the end, it says attendees. So you can have a look at the attendees in there and use that for attendance tracking as well. So yeah, that's quite a highly requested feature as well, wasn't it? Especially in education.
Really just making it more accessible as well. You know, technically the data was already there, but obviously you kind of had to go through and download the data report and then kind of look through the different tabs. But actually we've just made that particular attendance tracking, you know, a bit more accessible. You know, it's literally right in that data tab now. So you can go in and, you know, really easily identify, you know, how many people were on your session and who those users were. Obviously, that's presuming you're using Vevox in a non-identified way, but yeah, it's kind of a nice sort of addition there to the data tab.
Yeah, check that everyone stayed, which we hope so. And then the next one is custom profanity filters. So account admins can now manage and create their own profanity list, and this can be applied to the entire institution or organizational account. So every Vevox account has a default profanity filter and standard, and the custom option means that users can add this and edit this default list so that you have that little bit greater control. Maybe there's a word that you need to use or don't need to use, you can add that or remove that from your list. So both the default and custom profanity lists will be applied to polls, surveys, and also the Q&A board too. So the next one is the pie chart and number cloud display in PowerPoint. So these are things that Fraser mentioned from the September release. But these popular poll types are now available in the Office 365, getting tongue-tied today. Office 365 Vevox PowerPoint add-in, which isn't actually a tongue twister, so I don't know why I'm getting twisted. So yes, it's now, the PowerPoint add-in is also suitable for Windows and Mac OS as well. Perfect. And then the last thing, I believe, that for the December update is additional language support has been added for Danish, Finnish, and Swedish. So this is actually really easy to do. So as you can see on the GIF here, if you click on your initials on your account in the top right-hand corner, you can really easily kind of change which language the Vevox dashboard is in as well, and change it back if you want to do so. Perfect. I'll go back to Fraser.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brogan. So yeah, we've had a little look there kind of back at the past now, if you will. So we've had a look at what we kind of brought to the platform in September, and then in our December release as well. So, we just wanted to spend a bit of time, as mentioned at the start, now kind of looking to the future, in effect, and the things that our development team are, really kind of working on and planning into this year to hopefully be able to bring to the platform. So the next time we run one of these and I kind of look back at the past, hopefully it will include some of these things that we're about to look at. So just to kind of start off, so first of all, I just want to caveat this, everyone, that, everything that we're about to kind of look at here and mention, there are no, specific timelines or dates for any of these things yet. The way that software development tends to go is that things, can on occasion change depending on, on demand, and if, the specific kind of development resources have to be pulled in sort of other areas. But all being well, these are the things that we're, planning to ultimately be looking to develop into the platform. But unfortunately, we can't sort of commit to any sort of timelines or specific dates to any of these areas just yet. But just to kind of walk through some of these things and what they are. So the first one that we have on the list there is larger limits for numeric polls. So what that means is, so the second question that we ran at the start today, that was actually a numeric poll example, but it has quite a specific range at the moment. So I think it's limited to something like 10,000. So in terms of how the question is built. So we're looking to be able to increase the scale of that numeric range so that it can capture, an even bigger range of results and data, and then be able to display that back in either the PowerPoint or the present view. So those are, some things that we're working on around that. The second thing that we're then working on is a potential import functionality for being able to import questions and content into Vevox using something like an Excel template. Potentially that could take the form of like a CSV import file or something of that matter. So that essentially the idea being that you'll be able to kind of en masse upload multiple questions in one go into the platform, which, could really be useful in lots of cases if you already have, a library of questions that you already have, maybe in another solution or in, in Excel itself. You could really easily take that and then be able to uplift it directly into Vevox. So you can export data out of Vevox at the moment, and you can import data, but it first has to come out of the platform first. But what we're talking about here is an entirely kind of separate and brand new import function that will allow us to import all of that functionality and content directly in en masse, if you will. So yeah, really kind of excited about that one. I think that's probably something we get asked about.
Definitely.
Once a I would imagine exactly. So yeah, we were kind of jumping for joy when we first heard about that. So yeah, really excited to kind of see where we can kind of take that. And then the next thing is kind of on a similar vein in terms of how much it comes up, but this is around more presentation content in the sense of being able to add kind of sort of holding slides into your present view. So this is specifically for the dashboard version of Vevox, not the PowerPoint side of things, but within the present view, being able to have kind of more customization and flexibility around the actual presentation itself. So being able to add sort of dedicated sort of text slides, for example, or even imagery and video, so that you can then have questions and content that actually follow on from those slides that you've kind of presented on your present view. So it's almost kind of like the reverse of what the PowerPoint add-in does at the moment, because obviously if you want to use Vevox and have a bit more control over the customization and have a bit more flexibility, you can technically do that within the PowerPoint add-in. But we're sort of talking about also allowing that now in the native web-based version of the present view, which will be fantastic, I think, as well.
Yes.
So we then also have in the shorter term that we're talking about here, so the spring and sort of summertime roughly is what we're aiming for, team-based leaderboards. So for those of you that use Vevox for quizzing and sort of, even assessment-based activities, if you're potentially, in teaching or do anything around sort of assessing, this is really going to potentially allow for extra kind of collaboration. If you're using Vevox in sort of team-based activities. So the way that the leaderboard works at the moment is you get essentially a set of results per an individual device that's connected to the platform. But if you wanted to be able to split your audience into groups or teams, and then have an individual representative from that team being able to, submit their answers into the Vevox session, on behalf of that whole team, this is where the team-based leaderboards could then come in. So you could technically, still use Vevox in the same way you would normally, but you're kind of using it in that team-based environment. So you can get, that kind of collaborative learning exercise coming in, and also just a really great way to, kind of encourage a different approach to how you actually kind of do those particular quizzing-based activities. And then the last one for the kind of spring and summer period that we're talking about here is account level question library. So just to explain what that actually means. So we're talking about looking to develop a library that will sit at the account level within your account. So if you're from an institution or an organization that has an institutional wide plan with Vevox, it will mean that technically you have a library of questions and content that can be set up at an account level that anybody inside of the account can then pull from. So you can almost think of it as like a library of content you can then actually use to pull from in your own individual sessions. So it's kind of a way of sort of saving time and almost being able to create templates and that kind of things, or regularly use content and questions within Vevox. And then this is sort of more now towards the medium term. So this potentially may be looking at the end of 2025 or even bleeding over into next year with some of these other areas that we're kind of sort of starting to think about, I guess is the best way to frame that. So the first one being advanced scoring options. So this is looking at basically how the scoring data is calculated for results at the moment. So for example, taking something like a multiple choice question, if you get the multiple choice question correct, you simply get 1 point and you get a correct answer for that question. But that's true even if you have multiple selections available within that multiple choice question. So what we're looking to do is add some additional flexibility so that if there are multiple potential correct options in a correct answer based question, you could be awarded multiple points for answering those correct. And also potentially having the ability to scale questions differently depending on difficulty and that sort of thing, and ultimately how many points are awarded based on the question type. So giving you a bit more control and sort of customization over how the actual question is scored and how your audience essentially receives the award. And then finally, we also then have some work that we're looking into around the self-paced activities. And when we say self-paced activities within Vevox, really what we're talking about is surveys. And surveys are, very versatile. They can be used in a variety of different ways for kind of capturing feedback, also for issuing activities, learning-based activities, assessments, and that kind of stuff. But we're looking to add some more automation around how they work. So having the ability to have sort of automated start and end times when the survey is launched. Also the ability to have time limits as well. So, for example, a survey could be issued as soon as the survey is open. Potentially your audience has maybe, 20 minutes to complete all the responses before the survey isn't automatically closed. And we're also looking to kind of adjust how the leaderboards potentially display on those surveys as well. So you can actually also see that from a survey and don't actually need to be connected to the live present view. So yeah, bit of a mouthful to throw at you there. So hopefully, exactly. I think it's fair to say our development team, really have been hard at work the past sort of year, and our QA team was sort of bringing all of this functionality to the platform. And these are all the things that we're now looking at towards next year and then thereafter. So we are genuinely really excited about all these things. A lot of this is going to take a considerable amount of development work to make kind of fit into the platform, but we're really excited with where these areas can go. And with that, Brogan's going to just kind of take us through a couple of notices and just let you guys know about a couple of other things that are going on at the moment.
Perfect, thanks Fraser. So Vevox Notices, so a little heads up. So the Vevox legacy PowerPoint add-in will no longer be supported from June 2025. So we do actually, if you're not familiar with the new PowerPoint add-in, which is the Office 365 one, you can join the Beginner's Guide to PowerPoint Polling, which is a tongue twister, with Vevox, which is online every single Tuesday at 4:30 GMT or 11:30 Eastern Time. Or you can contact your customer success manager or support at Vevox for any further guidance, support or advice, or anything at all, please get in touch. And as well as this, so Vevox native apps, now have been removed as of the 1st of January this year as well. So that means if you want to join a Vevox session, easy for me to say, I don't know what's going on today, you can scan the QR code, you can share with the direct URL link, you can join at vevox.app, followed by the unique 9-digit session ID. And again, if you need any more help with this or have any questions, please do contact your customer success manager or go to support@vevox.com. Or alternatively, we also have our help site, which has lots of helpful articles on there as well. So I'm sure you can find something on there too. Fab. Also, in terms of Vevox webinars, so there's a couple of recent webinars on our YouTube channel, which if you haven't checked out, I would definitely recommend. So we had two. Our first was engaging criminology students using Vevox for success. So that was with Gabrielle and Brendan from Ulster University. And the second one was using Vevox for collaborative learning. And that was with Fergal from University College Cork. And both of those are really insightful, weren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Really worth a watch.
I think, you know, we are really lucky to have the champions that we do with Vevox.
Definitely.
And it's so good to be able to have the likes of, you know, Fergal, Gabrielle and Brendan, you know, come and speak, you know, on their experience of using Vevox, you know, particularly in this case, it was around obviously teaching. They were sort of education focused, but we also run webinars, you know, based on the sort of business and corporate side as well. And it's just really interesting to be able to kind of hear the different ways and workings of the platform. I mean, I've been with Vevox for sort of over 3 years now, and every day I'm still kind of learning new ways that the platform is being used, different kind of use cases. So yeah, if you are kind of interested in looking at those, then yeah, definitely do encourage you to have a look at those on our YouTube channel, as Brogan mentioned on the website.
Definitely. And also for any upcoming webinars, you can go to the link that is on the screen now, or if you go on Google or Safari, whatever you like to use to search, if you just search Vevox webinars, and that will bring up our page as well. And that way you can keep yourself up to date. And that's also where you go if you want to register for the Beginner's Guide to Vevox or the Beginner's Guide to PowerPoint polling. So yeah, find that all there. Also, we have a Vevox referral scheme. So you'll actually see in GoToWebinar, this should be in the message panel along the right-hand side. So you can refer a friend, share your love of Vevox, and both get a reward. You can choose an email template by clicking a button below. This is what it will say on the website, so you can click that. And why refer Vevox? So you'll both get a £25 or $1 Amazon gift card once they've attended an online demo. And once they are a paying customer, you can get a £100 or $100 Amazon gift card, plus some Vevox swag, which I'm wearing now. I don't know why you wouldn't want it. So yeah, you can refer as many people as you want. And if you can't accept gift vouchers, you can also donate to a charity of your choice. So if that's something that interests you, please do have a look in, not sure which way it'll be, but the panel with the messages, and there'll be a link there that you can click. Fab. So yeah, that concludes kind of all of the updates towards the platform. So as we mentioned at the start of the session, we do want to hear from you. So if you've got any questions, please do scan the QR code or go to vevox.app and type in the 9-digit ID, and ask any questions that you may have. So it's the speech bubble for anyone who is not yet familiar with it.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll leave this on screen for a couple of seconds, guys, just in case any of you need to rescan that if you've disconnected from the session for whatever reason. And then we're actually going to flick over to the Q&A and just see what kind of questions or content has been coming in throughout the session. I think we're kind of a little bit up against it on time, but I know we did start slightly later. So, you know, if you do obviously have to depart and leave us, then that is absolutely fine. You know, Brogan and I are going to stick around for as long as we can to try and answer, you know, as many of the questions that we have in here. But equally, you know, if you do need to contact us, you know, if you come off the session and feel like there's something you wish you'd asked, there's so many ways to get in touch with us. The easiest way is to actually just go through our website and look at the contact us methods, or you can contact us on hello@vevox.com, or you can contact our support team on support@vevox.com, and through those mediums we will be able to, you know, get your question answered and response back to you one way or another. But with that being said, I'm going to flick over to the Q&A, and let's have a little look at the questions and content that we've been having coming throughout the session. So like I said, we're going to try and get through as many as we can. I'm sure there's been quite a lot though, so we'll probably have to call it at some point, but we'll stick around for as long as we can, guys. And thank you so much for all of your engagement. You know, I really hope the session has been useful so far with what we looked at. So starting off, someone just made a comment here, demographic segmentation is excellent. Really excited about that. Yeah, I think exactly. Yeah, I think you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, it's a really cool addition, I think, to the platform. It's, yeah, you know, provides more data through different layers. Particularly, I think also the comparison poll, I think, is also equally as powerful. You know, allowing for that kind of visualization of exactly how people's decisions and feelings towards maybe a subject or, you know, a topic may have changed throughout, you know, the period of a meeting, you know, a discussion. To be able to display that back, I think is kind of priceless. So yeah, absolutely, really glad to hear that you like that as well. Thank you for the message. Demographic segmentation and attendance tracking are live features here. Okay, I think that's from a member of the team who has posted that. So thank you, whoever posted that in the Vevox team. Someone's posted, I love the pie chart feature. Again, yeah, so do we. So thank you guys for whoever has posted that. Really good to hear.
How do we get a link to the Tuesday PowerPoint training? So that was the webinar link that we mentioned. Yep. But if you either go onto the Vevox website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can find webinars, or if you just Google or whatever, use Vevox webinars, it will then bring that up as well, and you'll see the Tuesday session in there. So please do register.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Brogan. I think someone's actually responded to that as well.
There you go. Even better.
The team in the back end, so you've actually got the link on there.
Amazing.
If you do need that. Really like the point scoring change. Fantastic. Yep, really pleased to hear that. I think, yeah, both the team-based leaderboards and also the customization around the scoring are the two kind of big changes potentially coming there. So yeah, really exciting stuff. So we've got a question here around, I think, the demographic poll. So can the demographic segmentation be used to show how well each group has done, i.e. show proportion of each group that got a question correct? I mean, essentially the design philosophy behind the demographic question is you kind of first have your sort of question to get your demographic split. So in the example, it could be, you know, in you know, age ranges, for example. It could be, you know, what is your teaching subject, for example, if we're talking about, you know, maybe education. And then essentially you can run your opinion-based poll, and then you can split that poll results based by that demographic. So that's kind of how that's designed to work. In terms of the specific question here, probably need to have a bit of a chat with this individual directly, just to understand a little bit around, you know, what you're kind of referring to in this particular case. But yeah, that's kind of the main principle for how it works. But yes, essentially it will show you the portion of each group that, you know, that got the question correct.
Cool. And then the next one.
Cool.
Is there a way to make the multiple choice questions like a game, and the person who enters the question first and correct gets a shout out? So we actually do have a speed scoring, or fastest finger first, which you can use when running your polls if you want to kind of gamify things a little bit more. And there'll be an article of this on our help site if you search for speed scoring, or if you're not able to find that, then please do pop us an email and we can get that link sent over to you. But you absolutely can do that.
Perfect.
I mentioned this to the CSM, but after the webinar, it'd be useful to view the slides afterwards rather than just watching the recording. Again, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you email us, we can, of course, send you a copy of these slides. It's not a problem at all. Glad you would like them.
Very exciting stuff to use already and look forward to. Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there a way of creating a kind of inventory test in which answers are added up? So it's not a quiz with right or wrong answers. So it could be like, e.g., personality test in which participants can be categorized into types on the screen. Yeah, I think, well, let me just have a reread of this to make sure my answer is correct. Is there a way of creating kind of an inventory test in which answers are added up? So it's not like a quiz or right or wrong answers, so it could be like easy personality test. I mean, yeah, technically there are multiple ways to use Vevox. You know, a lot of what we talked about today has been focused around kind of, you know, talking about quiz-based activity, correct answers, that sort of stuff. But it doesn't have to be run that way. You can have, you know, a series of questions set up that don't have any correct answers set behind them, in which case the questions are more kind of sort of open-ended. So in the example you've given about a personality test, yeah, you could have your, you know, your question, and then you can list out personality traits and ask the participants to identify which of those areas they fall into, but simply you wouldn't program any correct answers behind those, because obviously there isn't one. It's a personal choice. It's not something that's it's not an arbitrary yes or no, or incorrect or correct. So yeah, there are multiple ways to use Vevox in that regard. Again, in this particular use case, I'd be very happy to chat to the individual if you wanted our kind of specific guidance, where we could go through some examples in person, over a call with you, to chat with you about that. But yeah, in effect, there are lots of ways to use the platform in those particular use cases. I hope that answered your question, but if not, like I say, we're very happy to explore that one further. So I think we'll go through and answer a couple more here, guys. There's still stuff that's coming through. Is there an option for the labels to be hidden by participants and used primarily for the moderating team? Yes, so they don't have to be enabled for the participants. In fact, the exact thing that you've described here is traditionally how the labels would work. They can be used, for moderating, and yeah, like I say, that's kind of traditionally how they did used to work, and you can kind of present them on the front screen as well. But yeah, they don't have to be enabled. You can sort of choose how you set those up.
The next one, the profanity list is comprehensive. It is indeed. You can make it even more comprehensive and add more words if you like to.
It certainly is. Yeah,
there's a lot on there.
There is. I think you might want to have a sit down the first time you open that up, because it can be quite specific, but it has to be obviously to ensure we completely knock out every variation of every kind of word or phrase that could come through. The profanity filter that we actually use in Vevox is it's sort of a standard profanity filter that exists, and then over time we've sort of added to that, but now you can actually kind of do the same and customize and add or remove words for yourself, which is great.
I'll let you answer that.
Yes, no worries. It would be nice. Sorry, I was just having a look at what else was below. It might be nice if the question import could also handle IMS common cartridge to bring question from VLEs into VLEs in a standards compliant way. I have to be totally honest, I'm not sure what IMS common cartridge is and refers to, but I assume it's something to do with the LMS platforms and the kind of format that the questions kind of come in and out of in terms of the import-export process. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that we could kind of pass on as feedback to our development team and sort of have that chat. I think with what I kind of talked about throughout the presentation today, obviously what we tend to do is start with kind of an initial base level of functionality and then eventually look to try and build things out further. So obviously this is going to be our first kind of iteration of this mass import functionality. So at the time, it's unclear whether it will kind of include the elements that you're talking about here. But like I say, we can certainly pass that to our team and kind of again have a conversation around this specifically, and understand the needs and wants there a little bit better. I think also this has had a response already, again, by one of the team in the back end, I think who's kind of sort of mentioned similar there. So yeah, thank you for whoever has posted that in the team, and thank you again for the question. I think maybe we'll do a couple more questions, guys, as I know we're a little bit over time here now, and I'm sure you've all got things to jump off, places to be, things to do, but like I say, guys, this will be circulated afterwards if you do want to watch the recording back as well. And if we don't get all of your questions answered today, we will endeavour to do that and kind of answer those en masse in a kind of offline forum. Do you want to take this one, Brogan? Yeah.
So if someone uses a profanity in a comment, what happens is the entire comment not appear, or just the profane word. So I believe that the entire comment does not appear from testing it. That is correct, isn't it? Or is it just the one word?
I think it is actually the word.
Oh, is it?
But actually, I'm second guessing myself now.
Oh, someone's replied.
Someone has actually replied to it. You're right. Someone that's one.
The entire comment will not be shown.
You're right. I apologise. You were correct. So yes, there we go. The profanity filter is, like I say, is quite advanced, so it will knock out most of what is inputted into the platform.
Definitely.
Well, I've re-educated myself there as well now.
Yes,
so yeah, it's the entire word.
Perfect.
Okay, I think we'll maybe do two more questions, guys, and then I think we'll probably have to wrap up for this afternoon. So I'm just going to see what this one says. So can we please have more information on how to set up attendance monitoring and rich text options for question formatting? Yep, so we do have guides on our help site around these areas already, guys. So they have been sort of written up, in advance with comprehensive steps on how these areas work. The rich text formatting is quite simple. In effect, it really just allows you to, when you're creating the question, you have an additional button off the kind of side of the screen. And if you press that, it will open up your formatting settings to access things like your bold, underline, sort of bulleting for bullet points and that sort of thing. And you can also use shortcuts as well, so you can simply highlight areas of the text and either use things like Control B, Control U to underline. And that works the same way for your correct answer explanations as well. And then with the attendance monitoring, that is contained in the data report, but then also on the data tab now, as Brogan mentioned. And again, we can show you where they live. But if you navigate to our help site, which you can simply find on our main website, you can find more information about this. And again, I think a member of the team has also put a little note in there to say that you can also email support@vevox.com, and they will be able to provide a bit more information to you about that as well in that specific use case.
Also, I'd subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're constantly updating helpful videos to show you kind of how to use different tools and use cases and things like that. So if you like and subscribe, you'll see those as they come in as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Brogan. So I think we'll take this last one, which is around LaTeX. Always my favorite. I love the LaTeX update. It's fantastic to see it can be used in not just the question text, but choices as well. I think Vevox is the only polling tool that has this. Thank you from me. Okay, so this is more of a comment actually. So yeah, no, that's lovely to receive. Thank you very much. And yeah, we know the significance of the LaTeX functionality. It's pivotal in many respects to some of our users. And yeah, we're constantly trying to update the libraries that kind of support that and make sure that it kind of brings about all of the functionality that you need to be able to kind of use the platform to its full.
Fab.
Fantastic. So I think we've kind of covered a lot of the main sort of points. I think there's lots of sort of thank yous and things in here as well. But yeah, I know we are a little bit over on time now already, guys, and I can see I've had to dip off already. So yeah, we will actually conclude the session there, and just want to close out really by saying thank you so much for joining us today. Really hope you found the session useful and that you've at least learned something. Whether it be the things we've worked on recently to develop the platform and things we're working on in the future. Do kind of follow the things that Brogan's mentioned, such as our YouTube channel. Obviously, you've got sort of webinars that are coming up as well to kind of stay up to date on these other things that we're working on. And yeah, I think we really hope to see you all again soon.
Yes.
And yeah, our next one of these will probably be in about sort of 3 or 4 months, I would imagine, when we kind of have our next release. So yeah, look forward to seeing as many of you as possible again. Hope you will have a fantastic rest of the month and a good start to the year. And yeah, we hope to see you all again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.